and thank you, Richard. So as we just found out, this session will be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards, after the session, and I will also send you an email with the link to the video once it is posted. There's the link to our YouTube that I just put in the chat. And following the session, I'll send you the slideshow that was used to present and also the link to the YouTube video once we have it posted. It'll be a little bit of time before we post it. Let's see. Thank you all for joining us. We have folks calling in from all over the world. If you would please continue to put in the chat where you're calling in from. It's great and exciting to see that. And I hope you all enjoy this training and continuing to build your skills. Right here on the slide, I'll pause here, is a link to where you can access, let me go to the next slide, where you can access our link tree and have the links to our website, our social media platforms, so you can learn about events like this in the future. You can also follow us on Eventbrite so that whenever there are future training sessions and guest speakers, you will learn about those events. And now I will pass it to Richard. Again, thanks for joining.
Hi, everybody, and just to echo Dana's comments, thank you very much for coming on today and sharing some of your day with us. My name is Richard Hinton, and I am the manager of the YouthMappers Validation Hub, and I'm based at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. So a little bit about what's going to happen today is, obviously, if you guys have tuned in for the introduction to JOSM training. At the Validation Hub, as with most people in the OSM community, when we validate, we use JOSM as a tool, primary tool for that validation work. So in these training series, what we want to do is obviously open up a JOSM training to everybody. And then in about a month's time, we're going to send out another call because we're actually going to have a training on validation itself. So the idea is that the skills that you learn through this JOSM training is that we hope that you will use JOSM in the coming weeks to really enhance your ability to edit with OSM and contribute to various projects. Then we'd love to see you come back again in about a month's time, as I mentioned, when we have planned our next training, which will be on validation itself. And so for the validation process, you do need to have experience with JOSM before you come, because we won't be talking about how to use JOSM. We'll just be talking about how to use JOSM as a tool for validation of OSM data. That date has not been set yet, but the validation training will happen in about 1 month's time. All right, so just keep your social media and your Facebook and your Instagram and your Twitter handy. You'll see the notification come out from YouthMappers about that when it comes out. So a little bit about the plan for today is we have two presenters today, Maxwell Awasu and Yang-Kun Zhao, who will be leading us through the training today. They'll be leading us through a presentation first, a sort of slideshow presentation talking about JOSM and the various tools. This will be followed up with a live demo using JOSM itself. Okay, so if you wish to follow along with that live demo, you're more than welcome to. And as we mentioned at the beginning, this is being recorded. So if you want to come back and watch it on our YouTube channel later and then walk through it, pause it, work through the various things, you're welcome to do that as well. As we move through both the presentation and the demonstration, if you have questions, please place them in the chat, and the other members of the Validation Hub, which are here, which will be introduced shortly, will be answering your questions in the chat. And then every so often through the presentation and through the demo, we will pause to see if anybody has any other questions that they wish to articulate. Either they can sort of unmute themselves and ask that question, or we'll address the ones that are in the chat and sort of make sure everyone's sort of on pace with us, and then we'll move forward from there. Okay, so for right now, we just ask that you keep yourselves on mute. And at this time, I'm going to ask each of the YouthMapper Validation Hub members to introduce themselves. So you've heard from me, and you've heard too much from me. So I'm going to pass it on to Joanna.
Hi, everyone. I am a student at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. And obviously, I work with the YouthMappers Validation Hub. I am an environmental science major pursuing a minor in GIS as well. Yeah, I will pass it over to Sarah.
I'm a junior at the George Washington University, environmental science.
Oh, I think we lost you at the end there, Sarah.
I don't know, whoever wants to introduce themselves.
Sarah, we couldn't quite hear you. Could you try turning off your video and then talking to us? I think the connections are not as strong as we. Okay, now try introducing yourself again, Sarah, please.
I'm a junior at the George Washington University.
Okay, we heard you were a junior. Thank you, Sarah. If you want to share your introduction in the chat, that would be great. And now we get to pass it to another hub member. Yeah.
Jan Kuhn, you want to go? Oh.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Jan Kuhn. I will be one of the leaders today with the presentation and demo. I'm also a George Washington University student here in Washington, D.C. I'm a junior, double majoring in geography and political science with a minor in GIS. And of course, I'm also a part of the YouthMappers Validation Hub. See who else should go. Hanukkah, would you please go next?
My name is Annika. I am a junior at the George Washington University this year, working with the YouthMappers Validation Hub. I'm double majoring in geography and international affairs with a minor in GIS, and I'm going to be here today to answer any questions you guys might have in the chat for me. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Maxwell. I am in my first year master's in geography at the George Washington University. I'm part of the YouthMappers Validation Hub, and I am a research assistant in the hub. And today I'll be part of the presenters, so I'm happy to have you all.
Excellent. Excellent. I think that's everybody. Yeah. All right. So with that, we're going to kick it off. So I'm going to mute myself and turn my camera off, and I'll hand it over to Jan Kuhn to get the presentation and training started.
Sorry, please just give me a second while I share my screen. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it.
You're good.
Duncan.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And Maxwell and I will be walking through with a brief introduction of what JOSM is and all of the cool things that you can do with JOSM. So my name is Jan Kuhn. If you have any questions about anything on the slides, please leave a comment and someone from YouthMappers would be more than happy to help answer your questions. All right. So first, what is JOSM? Well, JOSM is also known as the Java OpenStreetMap Editor. It is a desktop editing application for OSM or OpenStreetMap, and it runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So it is a really, really powerful tool, and it is an advanced editing tool in a stable environment where you can download data from the OpenStreetMap server. You can check it out to allow you to edit the data offline. And once you're finished editing with the data, you can send it back to the server with your validation checks, and that will save it on the OpenStreetMap server. Not going to lie, when I first came across JOSM, it seemed pretty intimidating, and I felt a little overwhelmed with the interface. But as soon as you start getting familiar with it and you start using JOSM more and more. It is actually a very, very efficient editing workflow process, much easier perhaps than some of the other tools that you might be familiar with, and that there are plenty of great shortcuts that can make JOSM a really, really helpful tool that you can add to your mapping skills. Okay. Slide. So this is just a brief overview of what the JOSM interface looks like. The format might look slightly different depending on if you're on PC or if you're on Mac or Linux, but generally this is what you'll have. So, where the map is, toolbars with tools. Here are the information panels with all of the different data that you might need as you're editing. Yeah. So this is just a slide with all of the different links that are available to you because JOSM is open source, and that any information that you like to know about JOSM, how to use JOSM, and all of the shortcuts, all of it will be available on these links. These are all very, very, these links have been provided by countless JOSM users and creators, and that all of, sorry, there are sirens outside. All of these JOSM tools and training guides will be very helpful for you to, as you're getting yourself familiar with JOSM and all of the functions that come with it. Okay, so installing JOSM, I'm just going to briefly walk through the installation process if you haven't already. So first, in order to run JOSM, you need to have Java 8 or higher. If not already installed, you can go to this link and install it, but this is the first step that you need to do in order to get JOSM up and running. Once you have downloaded Java, you are free to download a free copy of JOSM from the JOSM website. They do have new updates, so please check out whatever is the newest version and to update frequently. Okay, now that let's say you have downloaded JOSM and you're wondering what to do, here we will walk just a brief overview of how JOSM works and all of the things that you need to do in order to start editing. So first, when you open up the JOSM application, this is the page that you'll see. Remember, JOSM allows you to download data from the OSM server to check it out, work in an offline mode, and then once you're done with your edits, you're allowed to send the data back up. So JOSM allows you to work on the offline data, it syncs it by the user, and that it only allows you to check out a certain limited amount of data at a time. The first things that you should do when you download JOSM and open it up is to authorize your OSM account. This is extremely important because now JOSM will know, and OSM knows exactly who is doing the uploading and who is doing the editing. We'll go through this during the demo as well, but just a brief overview. When you open JOSM up, please go to Edit under Preferences. As you can see here in this GIF, you can select your connection settings, click on this Authorize Now button, enter your OSM username and password, and also click Accept Access Token, and all of that will allow you and ensure you to start editing JOSM. An important note, the menu items and the overall appearance of the preferences page will be slightly different depending on Windows or Mac. This is just something to keep in mind, but they'll generally look the same. And if you have any questions, please reach out. The next step that you should do before you can actually start editing is to set up remote control. This is pretty much you granting JOSM permission to allow you to work remotely, and you can access this similarly in the preferences window that we did use to access your account. You'll find this remote control settings tab. You can click on enable remote control, and that's all you need to do for this step. Next, you might want to download some plugins, especially if you are going to become a frequent OSM and JOSM user. Within the preferences window, you can select the plugin icon, and especially if you oftentimes map buildings, the buildings plugin is a great tool because it creates a lot of shortcuts for you as you're editing on JOSM. So you can search it the plugin on JOSM for buildings, and you can click this checkbox here that says building tools. And also there are some other plugins as well, such as the utilities plugin or Mapathoner. These are all plugins that either will help make your mapping process more efficient or just simply easier with shortcuts. Once you have finished all of that, when you actually download some data and try to start editing, this is the page that you'll see. We saw this on the second slide with an actual mapped out image, but here, just a brief overview. This bar up here is your main menu. You can access preferences from here. This black screen in the middle that you currently see is the map view. In order for imagery to show up, we'll talk about that in a bit, but you can add an imagery once you have all of this set up. On the left-hand column here, you have all of the editing tools. These contain your tools to start editing, like drawing nodes or streets or lines. This is also the place where you can add or hide information panels that you see here on the right-hand side. Here you can see, for instance, this information panel has layers. These are all the different layers that you might encounter as you're editing. You also have shortcut toolbar here that really helps you get yourself familiarized with the shortcuts. But overall, this is a pretty simple layout, and as you become familiar with it, all of this should become really, really easy to access. So now we're going to briefly talk about some mapping features using JOSM. Again, as you become more familiar with JOSM, you'll start using shortcuts to make these processes much, much easier. So first, we need to download some OSM data. There are a couple of ways to download data from OSM, but one of the principal ways is you can go to the File tab under Download, or you can simply click on the Download button. When you click on the Download button, it will open a slippery map tab, and you can use your mouse to zoom around, zoom in and out to a specific area that you know that you will be mapping and editing, and then you can draw a box around that area. And after that, you can click Download. Once you get downloaded, JOSM will get the data from OpenStreetMap and open the map up in your windows for editing. We'll all go through this during the demo, so if this seems like a lot of information right now, we'll also show how this is done. Another way that you can specify an area that you want to download is go on to openstreetmap.org and then find the URL of the place that you want to edit and map. And you can copy the URL and paste that URL into JOSM, and JOSM will be able to identify the area in which that you want to edit. So this is just how the other step. So here you can click open location and then enter your URL. So once you have downloaded data, you can see here, this is a page map view that has all of the data that you've downloaded. However, there is no imagery yet that you can see in the background. It's all black. You can activate the imagery by going to the imagery layer and then turn it on, but you can also deactivate or activate the visibility of any layer, change their alignments by moving them up and down, or simply deleting them or merging them, as you can see here in this information tab on the layers section. Now, let's see. So to get that imagery set up, we'll go to the imagery tab here in the main menu and click on the appropriate imagery that your project has specified. So here, for instance, in the demo, we're using Maxar Premium. So we went to the imagery tab and clicked on Maxar Premium. And as you can see here, the map view gets filled up with an actual imagery instead of it remaining black. Sometimes when you download layer, or when you turn on imagery, you can see that perhaps the data and the edits is slightly misaligned with the imagery. Here you can either adjust the visibility of the imagery, but there's also ways for you to realign the imagery so that it more closely aligns with the data that's on your map. The visibility of the layers can be adjusted with a series of sliders, as you can see here, that make certain features pop out more. So if that helps you with your mapping. It is also good practice to compare imagery sources when you are mapping. Any additional layers or imagery can be added by selecting them from the imagery menu that we went over last slide. Okay, now I will be handing the presentation over to Maxwell, who will go over the rest of how to edit on JOSM. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. If you have any questions, again, please leave
Yes,
them.
I have a question, please.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't get the part where you were explaining how to import an image from OSM and then add it to the JOSM. Could you please elaborate on that, the steps, please, again?
Yeah, of course. Here, let me just try and go back in on the slides here. So there are a couple of ways to download data from OSM. You could either click on this download tab that you see, and it will pop up a slippery map that you can move around to say, oh, this is the area that I want to edit. Once you have selected that and click download, then OSM will download that data onto your JOSM application, and you'll be able to see something like this page here, where you have the data actually appear on your JOSM map. To get the imagery, you need to go to the imagery tab here, select the type of imagery that your project needs and requires. And then once you select that, the layer of the imagery will then pop up. This is now where you can really begin to align things to start editing. We'll go through like step by step how to download specifically in the demo portion so that that is more clear based on what we've described. I hope that's a decent enough of an explanation.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Again, you can also feel free to put them in the chat as well. Okay. Yeah, Maxwell.
So if there are no questions, then I'll continue. So in JOSM, we can add points, lines, and shapes that represent real life locations. It's similar to using the ID editor. So usually we can add like new points, new shapes, and then we describe these features by using the preset function or the preset menu. But then before I go on, I would like to point out that when you load JOSM, please do not map outside your area that you download. Next slide, please. Yeah, so on this slide, we will be looking at the basic operations in JOSM for you to use. So to begin with, let's look at navigation in the platform. And to do that, we have the right mouse button to drag map from one location to the other. And then you can manipulate features with the left mouse button. And if you're using the mouse, you use the scroll wheel to zoom in and zoom out. Next slide, please. So the basic operations in JOSM is mainly if you want to select any element for editing or for viewing their tags, or by moving them, you use the select function, which you can basically click on the S button on your keyboard. And for you to add elements or to add either nodes or anything, you use the A that is on your keyboard or the add function. This allows you to add nodes and ways onto your platform or anything that you are trying to map. And you can as well as delete features that you think you made a mistake and you want to redo it. Next slide, please. So in Java OSM, the main idea is nodes, ways, and close ways or areas where nodes means specific for like point locations. So nodes are points in space, and each often have a longitude and a latitude. And then ways are mostly ordered list of nodes. So mainly if you are good with mapping, it's like drawing lines. So it's mainly used for describing roads and paths. And we also have closed ways or area, which is for drawing or describing areas like parks, buildings, land uses. Next slide, please. So to draw a node in JOSM, you first of all need to clear your current selection if you've done that, and then you press on A, or you select the node button. It's usually, depending on your settings, it's usually on the left, and then you can put it on the location or the feature you want to map. You press on the left mouse button anywhere, and then after you're done, you press on escape. If you want to make your node there, you double click to create a node, and then you return back to X if you want to move to select any feature. Next slide, please. Yeah, similar to ways, you also again need to unselect everything, and then you press on A again, and then this time around, instead of drawing one point, you have an ordered point. So you draw a line. For example, if you are trying to map a road, so you use that and then you draw along the road. And then you also double click when you're done. So next slide, please. So this actually shows you how you actually map a road. And then, as I already said, you need to unselect everything, and then you activate by selecting A on your keyboard. And then when you're done, you can add like tags to your road. For example, if it's an highway, and if you also know like the road type, you can also add it. And to do that, you have the Alt plus A for Windows. I think it's the same for Mac. And when you're done, you just select highways, and you can also use Alt S to edit your tags. Next slide, please. Sometimes you will want to map the land use of the area. And then to do that, you also activate your A, and then you map the land use. For example, if it's residential, and as the same process, you use the Alt A to select, and then afterwards you add your tag name. For example, if it's a land use to it, and then you press OK to add the tag. Next slide, please. So maybe you've been hearing of tags. So this slide basically shows you like what a tag is and then how it is done. So for tags are mainly a key value pair, and the key basically describe the general classification of the feature, and then the value gives a more specific information within the class key. So if, for example, you have building, so building will be the key, and then the value will be like the specific, for example, if it's, let's say, a school building. So be cautioned that when you are adding tags, it should be lowercase, and you should not include spaces. Instead, use underscore. Next slide, please. So in JOSM, they have what we call as presets or tags. That is what you often use to add tags. So when you select the add or you select the Alt A, it can take you there, or you can have select a feature, and then when you check on the information menu too, there is an add option there to add your tags to it. Next slide, please. And one other way is to add from the presets. So here the presets has a lot of more tag information that has been defined that you can search, and then I think it covers a lot. I think the most frequent used by the OSM community. So you also go to your presets and then you choose the particular tag you want to use. For example, if it's a man-made, what kind of man-made? Maybe it's a tower, it's a building part. So all these options are already available in Java OSM for you that you can play with. Next slide, please. So moving on, we are going to look at how we can add buildings. So with buildings, bear in mind that we've already installed the building plugin. So to activate the building plugin, you just select B on your keyboard, and that makes it activated. And then you start drawing along the feature. So with the building plugin, you just need few clicks. So you start from the corner of the building, and then you just draw along that. But then it will already square it for you, so you don't need to worry about that. And then what good thing is it already add the tags to it automatically. I will show you a demo in the demo session. Next slide, please. Sometimes you see buildings that is having like the L shape or the T shape, and you will want to draw that. And then to do that, we use the extrude. So to do the extrude, you select X on your keyboard, and you double click on the place that you want to extrude out, and then you just drag or pull or push in any of them, and then you'll be able to get that part extruded. Next slide, please. Sometimes you also see buildings that are circular. So to do that, you just need to select, first of all, you need to make sure that you have your buildings activated, and then you select Alt Z to activate the circular function, and then you just draw a diameter, and then it will automatically draw a circle for you. And then when you're done, you switch back to Alt R for the rectangular function. Next slide, please. Also, you realize that sometimes when you are mapping, some buildings have some internal courtyards, and you want to map such a thing, you need to use, so what you basically do in the building is you draw series of building around that, and then you merge it afterwards using the Shift J. This helps you to like merge all overlapping buildings into one, and then you have that center. Next slide. So if you see any like on square building, for example, if you are mapping and you see like some buildings are on square, you just hit on Q, and then it will square it for you. And you can also rotate buildings when it's not in line by just selecting the Shift Control on Windows. I think is the same for Mac, and then you can rotate it in the direction you want, and you can also resize it by using Control Alt. sometimes too, you see that some features will be like glued together. For example, when a road is glued to a building, you use G to unglue those features. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we are going to talk about mainly how you upload all your information, like when you're done mapping, like you have to now push it back onto the OSM platform. So to do that, you have to select the upload function, or you just select Control-Alt+ the up arrow. That will display the upload pop-up. You add like your comment in your change sets, comment session. For example, maybe you added rows or you added buildings, you do that. And then you add the image that you use and you can now upload your changes. Next slide, please. So this is also a quick one to show you how you can also find projects in JOS, the Hot Task Manager or the Teach Manager, and then quickly upload it onto your JOSM platform. And you can do that by going to the platform and activating your JOSM. And I think when you go to your Hot Task Manager, you have the option to select JOSM. That will allow you to remotely upload projects onto the platform. Next slide, please. So now that everything is set and done, you will want to now upload all what you've done onto the USM platform. As the previous step, I showed that to already do that. So you have to remember that you have to enter your OSM account details, and then everything will be linked to your account. Next slide, please. And when everything is uploaded, now you can go to the OSM platform to check your changes. If you don't see it, please don't worry. It takes some time sometimes for it to show your edits. So next slide. So this slide basically shows you like some shortcut sheets that you can use on USM. And this ends my part of the presentation. And any questions?
All right, I think you guys can carry on then with the actual live demo of the JOSM tool itself. Good job. And so as Maxwell and Yankun were saying, they in this next portion, you'll actually see some of those tools being used and how you can use them. So please, again, if you have questions, throw them into the chat window and we will address them as best we can.
Okay, I will now try and share my screen again to see if I can get JOSM to show up. Okay, can everybody see the JOSM page?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. So in our presentations, we talked about how JOSM works, some of the cool functions that JOSM has, and what JOSM looks like. So this is the page that appears when you first open up JOSM. For everyone who is not familiar with it, we need to set a few things up first in order to get JOSM up and running. Now, I've already done so because I've been using JOSM for some time now, but when I go to the Preferences tab, these things should look generally the same. So first, when you open up JOSM, what you want to do is authorize your, remember here, in this part of the Preferences tab, you want to authorize.
Yankun,
Yes.
We can't see your preferences window. We only see the main JOSM window.
Oh, see if I can, okay, quickly change it. Does that work?
Yes, there you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'm on a Mac. So how to get to the preferences page, I went up to my main menu under File, and I was able to select preferences from there. So here in the preferences page, I went to this tab here. It's a little hard to see, but it has two computers. And here you want to click on use authorized token. Here, this is where you fill out your information, put in your OSM account, and then click authorize, and then access token, all of the things that we went through on the slides. Once you have that all set up, then you want to find the remote control tab, which is a little hard to see sometimes. Okay, here in the remote control tab under preferences, you want to click on enable remote control. And once you click that, you can click OK. Remember, this is very important in order for you to be able to download the data from OSM and to begin editing. Then after all of this is done, you'll want to click on plugins. And here you can see how many just plugins that you can add to help make your editing in JOSM either easier or more efficient. Some of the ones that we mentioned in the slides include buildings. So here, this is probably the most important plugin that you'll be using. But there's also things such as Mapathoner, all of the things like that. If you want to download them, just click the check arrow and then download them to JOSM. Now, I close this. Oh, okay. That unshared everything. Okay. So once you have set all of those things up under the Preferences tab, let's talk about how you actually get the data to display on your JOSM account. So we talked about a couple of different ways for you to download data. One of the ways is, I believe here where under My function, you can click Open Location under File, click that, and you can paste the URL from the OSM website. And once you paste it, you can download URL and the map will open up. Another way is to see this green arrow downward arrow here. Click on the download arrow, and you will see here that this opens up to a slippery map tab that
we can't see the slippery map.
Okay.
Try sharing your entire screen. Then it should pick up all the windows that pop up.
Okay. Shift. Okay. Hope that works. I really, okay. So you can see here that this is a slippery map tab and that you can move around, draw a rectangle depending on how big you want it. You can also zoom in and out to see the area that you want to map. And let's say this is the area that you do want to map, then you can click download data. Okay. Sure. Okay. Can everybody see this map page?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. So this is what it will look like when you first open and download the data. Here, remember, this is our main menu tab here on the left-hand column. This is all of your different tools and how you can display information tabs. And on here, these are all your actual information panels. As you can see here, this black box is the box that you drew on your slippery map tab when you first downloaded the data. And all of these different edits that you can see here are edits done either by yourself or someone else. Now, in order to move around the map to get yourself familiarized, we talked about how the left click is just to select things. The right click helps you move around and traverse the map, and then you can zoom in and out with the scroll on your mouse. Something else to note is it's incredibly useful to have a mouse for this. So, if you don't have one, if you just use trackpad, it also works, but it can be slightly more difficult to use. So now that you've downloaded this data from OSM, you need to now put an imagery in your layer to really begin editing. So in order to do that, you go under imagery and select the imagery that your project asks you or fits the project most appropriately.
We can't see that drop-down menu, Yankun. Oh, wait,
Okay.
it's popping up there now.
Oh, okay. It's on your, not the main menu, but the tab for, at least for Mac, it's at the very top. It will say, it will display the word imagery, and you can click that. And then you can select a specific type of imagery, and you can see here in your layers information panel that displays and it's loading. You can turn it off and on with this little eye button, but in general, this is how you would get a new imagery. And this imagery right now looks pretty good, I would say. There's not much here, but let's say that this is somehow misaligned, or you would like to align it so that it better fits with the data already on the map that you have. You're able to go back into the imagery tab again, and then click new offset, and then you're able to drag around a bit, as you can see here. You can move the map, but the data will stay, and you can try and fit the map a bit more. Once you have all of this set up, you have your imagery, you have your data. Now you can start really drawing and adding things. Let's say, see if there's a part of the map that's not been mapped yet. Okay, let's just say that there is a road or a building over here and you want to add it. So you would come to your left-hand column with all of your different tools, and you can add a node. This is how you add a node. And then you can start drawing it could be a line. You can double click to finish that line. Or let's say if you want to draw a building, you can just trace the building and then press Q to square it. If you have the buildings tab downloaded, a really great way is to click B to easily access it. And then as you draw it, it would automatically create a rectangle for you. And here you can actually see that already comes attached with a specific tag. This is sort of the shortcut way to how to draw a building, but you're also more than welcome to just use the regular nodes and draw it manually as well. But just please remember to square buildings wherever possible. If you are using the traditional way of mapping a building, you can add a tag here by going to this add button under the tag information panel. If you do not see it, you can add it here. I believe it's this one. You just click on it and it will pop up. Then you could click add. And let's say this is indeed a building. This is the value that you're using. And click yes. And now this looks exactly like the other one that we use to draw the building tools with. We also talked about how we can use presets. So let's say this doesn't have a tag at the moment. Next to the imagery tab on your main menu, there is the presets tab. You can click on presets, and under there are many, many different types of commonly used OSM tags. Let's say here, this is relations office. It's an office, for instance, and you know that, and it's a government office. You can click that and type all the information there and then add to it. We also talked about a bunch of different shortcuts with the building tools. Let's say we've already added this, but we realize that this is a T or L-shaped building and we would like to extend this a little bit. What we will do is click the X button on your keyboard, add a node there, and then we're able to push it out like that, holding the X. Let's say that these buildings are overlapping and you would like to join them. For instance, you're drawing a courtyard where they just simply overlap and you don't want them to overlap. You could select these two and then press Shift J, and now it will join the two buildings together like that. If they're, let's say, a circular building and you want to draw a circular building, right now the building tools is drawing a rectangle. You can click on, I believe it's Alt R to sorry, the Mac keyboard can sometimes be a little frustrating to use because it doesn't have the Alt option, but you can switch back and forth between drawing a circle or a square building. You can also draw it in a traditional way as pretend that you're tracing a circle building. And once you're finished, you can press O, and that will also help you draw a circular building. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions with how to draw things or how to edit things or upload things on JOSM? Okay, hearing none, I will now pass the demo portion now to Maxwell. But before I go, I'll just quickly also add that this does indeed might seem overwhelming at first, but once you start really editing and familiarizing yourself with the keyboard and shortcuts, this will get much, much simpler. I will now stop sharing. If Maxwell, if you would like to share your screen now.
Yeah.
Maxwell, when you do that, can you, because we had some trouble seeing some of Yankun's windows pop up, can you make sure you share your entire screen, not just the application? That might help, because we still had some issues with some of the drop downs and stuff from Yankun's screen.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's right. We got most of it.
Okay. Yeah. I also now have to run to another meeting, but I hope this has been a really, really helpful and learning experience for everybody, and that I hope everybody becomes familiar with JOSM and use it efficiently. Thank you all for coming, and I will hopefully see everyone sometime soon, perhaps at the validation training.
Thanks, Yankun. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Yankun.
Have a good day, everyone.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Okay, so as continuation of Yankun did, I will look at how we can move, rotate, and scale buildings. So here I've not added image. Maybe a good one is to add one. So you go to imagery and let me add any. So if you add, you mostly have to check to see if it's aligned. So this, I think I will just put it off because it's not make it clear for you guys to see. So so the first thing I would like to do is you can move buildings from one position to the other, especially when it's not aligned with the building for one particular thing. So you just select, and then you can drag the building. Sometimes too, you realize that the building is smaller than the actual feature on the image. So you want to like make it a little bit bigger. And to do that, you select all shifts, I think so. And then no. So you select Alt, and then you see it can become smaller and bigger. So that is one way to like rescale or resize your buildings. And then one thing that you also need to take note is you want to rotate your building. Sometimes if it's not aligned with like the building feature. So that is Control Shift, and then you can also rotate your building. So also in some situations, you realize that there is, let's say, let me go to an empty session. And I will just draw, let's say, a road, and then there's, let's say, a building. So there is a road and a building, and then the building is attached to the road. So you can see that when I move the building, it also moves along with the road. And this is a typical problem because how OSM is done in such a way that it always snaps to the closest feature if it's really, really close. So to do that, we need to unglue that. So you just select the node that is like attached to the building, and then just press on kill. And then with that, you unglue it, and now the building is no more attached to the building. Also, sometimes you draw a road and then the road doesn't have any intersection, and then a good practice is every road should have an intersection. So to do that, you select the two. You select the two by using your shift key and then selecting the two map features, and then you go to more tools and then add an intersection. Now you have an intersection here. So that actually shows that, okay, this is an intersection. Also, sometimes you will want to also split some ways because, so if you have a way, you will want to split like a long one, like this one. So to do that, you just place a node on the way, and then you go to split way, and then it will now attach the node for you. Also, you'll want to merge some nodes. So when you have like node and you want to merge them, you will go to what is it? The main thing is to use an M. So don't know what my computer is. No. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So I don't know, but then my computer is not working. So maybe let's move on to using the map toner tool. And so for the map toner tool, what we basically do is sometimes you want to do like you have more buildings and you want to map them at a time. So you go to the map toner tool, and then you have the option to draw like a bunch of circular buildings or octagonal buildings or L-shaped buildings. And then this allows you to draw them like in several batches. And then to do that, you just select, let's say if you want to draw octagonal buildings, you select and you draw that, and then you go there, and then it will automatically convert that into buildings for you. The good thing is it already comes with its tags, so you don't need to worry about the tagging. So that is one way to do that. And another thing that I also like to show is about the set function. So with the set function, let's say you have all these buildings. The idea is you want to see which features are tagged, which are not tagged, which are tagged properly, especially if you are doing any validation work. And you'll want to actually know like where there are issues with the tagging or where you want to find a particular like feature. So you go by selecting the set tool, and then this menu will pop up. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yep, the search window's up.
Okay, good. So what you basically do is, for example, if you want to search for all buildings, you just type in buildings, equal to this, and then you just click on this search, and then it says nothing much. No, I think no, building should be building, yeah. So when you do that, it gives you the option to select virtually all buildings. And then assuming you are doing a validation work, you will want to see which ones don't have any tag. Sometimes too, you will want to specify more options by adding the node to, for example, if you want to like detect buildings with more nodes where it is more likely to be circular buildings, and then you want to be sure that they are circular buildings and they are not like industrial tanks. So you can use nodes, and then so that will select all buildings with only like nodes that is more than 4. So this gives you options to really play around with the JOSM, where it gives you more opportunities to specifically select certain node range, and then you can use that to really check your edits. So I'm now talking about that. Already mentioned about value. So just click anywhere, and then you will deactivate your selection. So one good thing about JOSM is about the validation function. So when you have all your element map, you'll want to validate to see if like you did a good job, or if there are errors in your work. For example, if you are mixing any typological error, that I mean by if some of your buildings are like attached to a road, and or there's no tag, so you just have the validation tool here, where you just click on that, and then automatically it will run, and then it will give you a series of warnings. So in this one, I have about 99 errors on this data set that I downloaded, and then some of them relates to like house number without streets, overlapping buildings, that is like what has been tagged as buildings overlap with other buildings. So you can easily select one, and then you say zoom to the problem, and then it will take you to that problem. So you can now see, okay, this is where the problem is, and then if it and then it requires fixing, so you will have to fix everything. So when you select on, sometimes it's also good that the validation tool already allows you to fix by clicking on the fix, but I don't know why mine is not activated. Maybe because none of the errors can be fixed by the validation tool. So you can also have unnamed rows. So this gives you an idea of which waste has not been named, which waste has not been tagged, and then you can now see where the problems are by going to the zoom area and then try to correct all these problems. So to correct this problem, you just need to, if you check and then there's an overlap here, and it maybe you need to merge them, you just select the two, and then shift J to merge everything into one building. And I think that will be it for the demo. Any questions?
Maxwell, in the chat, someone asked to repeat the Mapathoner tool and how to use it.
Okay, great. So the Mapathoner tool is basically when you really want to like map real quick, like a lot of features all together. So you have a bunch of buildings and you want to really map them without trying to map them individually. So you select, assuming it's an octagonal building, you first of all activate by selecting an A, and then you can now start drawing like along the building that you want to map. So you try to draw like at least have 2 nodes for each building. And then when you're done, you double click and then you go back to map toner and then you select batch orthogonal buildings. And then with that, it will convert those lines into buildings for you so that at least you have like map all the buildings at once instead of trying to do them individually. So you can do the same thing if it's a circular building. So you just draw the circular building, you double click, you go here and then you select batch circular buildings and then it will get you the circles. Does that answer your question?
I found that the Mapathoner tool is great, but it does take a little bit of practice using if you want to do circles or the squared buildings or something a little more complicated in sort of geometrical shapes. But it is very handy because, as Maxwell's showing, you just have to hit a few corners, or in the case of circles or circular buildings, just the radius, or sorry, just the diameter. But then it can, it'll do them all at once when you hit Mapathoner, and it will tag them, which is pretty cool. So it does make things more efficient once you got a handle on how to use it. So if you're interested in using it, I suggest giving it some practice and play around with it, and you'll find it use pretty handy tool once you get the hang of it.
Yeah.
Maxwell, Charles responded that his question was answered. There was another question in the chat. I think Sarah explained what keys to use, but someone asked how you merge the buildings. I don't know, maybe if you want to demonstrate it, but Sarah said like you select both features and click in. And there's other advice in the chat too.
Okay, yeah. So if you want to merge buildings, you just draw buildings by selecting B, and then you select the 2. So you select the 2 by clicking S to activate select option, and then you select shift, and then you can now click the 2 to select the 2. And one way is to go to tools and then there's merge, or you just aim to merge everything. So now it's merged together. And if you want to draw in like the courtyard buildings, so one way to do that is to have, so one way to do that is to have your okay, what is wrong? Okay. So one way to do that is to have your buildings. So you draw one building and then you make sure there's an overlap with the other building and another overlap. And another overlap. And then you select everything together. And then you just shift J, and then you get your internal courtyard. And then afterwards, you can use Q to square it. So this is one way to also like merge buildings together and then also get an internal courtyard. And as Yakun was trying to do the extrude, that it didn't work for him. So you have, let's say, your building. You just press on X, and then the sign will change. And then this is assuming this is where you want to extrude. and you can now extrude it out. So that allows you to also get your like L-shaped buildings. And you can also do similar for circle. I don't know what, it's not working. Okay, I don't know, but it's not working as how I want it to work. But then basically that is one way to merge buildings and to also get an internal courtyard. Any more questions?
If you'd like to, that sort of finishes up our demo. But again, if there are questions, please put them in the chat, or you can just take yourself off mute if you would like to sort of post a question to the group or to the team. One of the questions I see in the chat here is, what is the main function of Mapathoner? It's what helps you trace a number of features that are sort of the same type. They're all squares or all circles. You can do a sort of a batch trace of those. But as well, I think you may have seen Maxwell, if you can go up to the Mapathoner menu item, you'll see one of the options. It helps you find, especially if you're going through a lot of data and you want to sort of make sure it's accurate. You can see there's one there to select duplicate buildings. So it's a quick function to help you select duplicate buildings. And also you can select all non-orthogonal buildings. So once you select all of those, once you investigate them and see that maybe they should be squared or should be orthogonal, you can actually hit the Q key at one time and all of them that are selected will get squared at the same time. So it's just another tool to help sort of speed up either the creation of data or the sort of investigation of data that already exists. Any other questions or clarification or anything that you guys would like? Anybody would like? Floor is open. Yes. I think it'd be a great idea, Maxwell, if you could take your, stop sharing your screen. And if people are comfortable with it, would you please put on your camera? So we'd like to get a group picture of everybody that's attending today, and see your smiling faces, and we could sort of keep this for posterity, I guess. Dare, did you want to take the picture? We could
Yeah,
follow
I'll
your
take the
lead on the
picture.
count.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone will just give you a couple of seconds. If you're comfortable with turning on your camera, you can turn on your camera and we will take a group picture. And just keeping in mind that your video will be shown on YouTube, because this recording will be posted on YouTube, and that it may also be posted on social media. So if you're not comfortable with it, totally understand. I will give a countdown. I think that's probably everyone. Okay, so on the count of 1, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and another time. 1 second. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Great, thank you all so much. Okay, I will pass it back to you, Richard.
Awesome, thank you, Dara. So yeah, before we go, I see it's about 10 minutes till the hour here, so we have about 10 minutes left. If there are any questions, we're happy to field any of those. But if you have no questions, then we can give you back the 10 minutes of your day to do with as you wish. Again, as Dara mentioned, as once we finish the recording, Dara will email everybody and let you know that it's available. And of course, it'll be available on our YouTube channel very, very soon. If you have any questions, and of course, it's there to use as you wish. Also, if you have questions about JOSM, about the work that we're doing, by all means, please just reach out to us through email. I think everybody should have Dara's email, and you can always sort of go through her if you have questions, and then she can sort of direct it to the hub or to one of us to answer later on as well, if you wish.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you should have gotten an email from me today as a reminder for the event. The email is communications@youthmappers.org. So that is how I've been contacting everyone. I accessed your emails from where you registered. If for some reason you found this link another way, I will post my email in the chat so you can reach out to me and ask any questions. And I think Christian has a question in the chat. So yeah.
Is it possible to keep the imagery while working offline? I don't think it is. If you're completely offline and not connected to the internet at all, I think you'd have to have the imagery, as best I know, downloaded locally, because as you load it, it is drawing it from the internet and allowing you to sort of, it'll load the tiles for where your current location, and then we'll add tiles, of course, as you pan around. That's a good question, but not that I'm aware of. You're not able to work offline and keep the imagery unless you have it locally or have it so access to it locally. Share the link where to access the shortcuts for JOSM. Yes, well the presentation actually today will also be available, actually, and so all those links from the presentation will be in there. And there's a page on there with the JOSM shortcuts, and there are a ton of shortcuts in JOSM, which is great. It takes a while to learn them all, but as you start using tools, you'll become very familiar. And I've seen some folks that are very efficient with JOSM, where they have one hand on the mouse, the other hand's on a keyboard, and they're just banging between selecting nodes and adding features, and then squaring things and merging. Just like one hand just hitting all the shortcuts, and the other hand on the mouse is clicking and selecting and dragging. It's pretty impressive to watch when someone gets very, very efficient with it. But yeah, the presentation, and of course the presentation slides, I should say, and of course this recording will all be made available to you very, very soon. Yes, thank you, Dara. All the resources that we have, the JOSM training documentation, validation training documentation, other things that we have are all available on the YouthMappers site, and Dara just threw that in the chat window as well. Any other parting questions, concerns, comments before we call it a day? Drone imagery. Yeah, you can use drone imagery for sure. You'd have to obviously have access to it. If you're downloading or sort of you're capturing drone imagery in the field and then stitching it together, you can definitely use that. That's the nice thing with JOSM. You can add various imagery sources into it. I don't have the exact process on the top of my head right now, but there is, I think the learnosm.org site may have information on how to add drone imagery, because that's becoming more and more obviously prevalent with field mapping. But yeah, you can have your own imagery. As well, of course, with drone imagery, if you want to make it available to anybody, you can upload it to Open Aerial Map, and then anybody can sort of pull it down and use it in JOSM if they wish, or any other use as well, if that's something that you're willing to do. Any other questions? You guys have been asking some great questions, by the way. So this is excellent. All right. Any other questions? Excellent. Glad you're able to find it helpful.
Wait, Richard, just the last question.
Yep.
On the imagery, is it always that we have to use Max, or which one is the best? On the imagery part, which one is the best?
It really depends on where you're mapping. Oftentimes, if you're working from a particular project, hopefully the project managers and the research to see if Bing is best or if Maxar is best and which Maxar, if Esri is best. It depends because the imageries are updated at different times and are of different quality and different resolutions. So it really depends on what's available for your area. I mean, if there isn't good high resolution, clean, clear, and recent imagery for your there, if you're able to get your hands on drone imagery, then that would be the best, obviously. You'd have very high resolution and it'd be very, very timely. But unfortunately, you can't say Bing is better than Maxar or Maxar is better than Bing all the time. Because it really depends on where you're mapping in the world. And you just have to sort of look at all the options available and choose which is the best option. Because unfortunately, some of the imagery that's the clearest may not be the most recent. So sometimes you're having to go back and forth between, okay, this one's a little more clear, but this other one has sort of, new roads, new buildings in it, but it's not quite as clear. So you need to try and sort of decipher which features you want to trace from which imagery. Then of course there are alignment issues as well, which was discussed earlier today. So there's a lot of, around imagery, there's a lot of work and negotiation needs to be done when you're trying to trace out an area.
Richard, going back to the previous question on drone imagery, I'm just going to share my screen real quick.
Yep.
What I'm showing my screen is the YouthMappers resource library, and you can access that by our website going under chapters. So this is the resource library, and under the mapping toolkit, there's resources about drones for OSM here.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
fantastic.
let me see if I can show you all how to get to that. So if you go to our website, so youthmappers.org, and then you go to chapters, and then you go to resource library. That is where you can access all of our links to the resources.
Excellent. Thank you, Dara. Yeah, that's very helpful, I think. All right, in the remaining 2.5, 3 minutes, any other questions? Okay. Well, folks, thank you very, very much for attending today. Really appreciate your time and attention today. And as always, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help you guys and answer any questions the best way we can. And obviously, YouthMappers, as you saw, the YouthMappers website is a great resource to sort of learn more. And then again, ask questions when they come up. We're here to help. And hopefully we'll see you guys at our validation training. Be on the lookout for that in the next, say, 4 to 5 weeks or so. We should have that. So in hopefully about 3 weeks or so, we'll have an announcement on that. Okay. So I'll leave you guys to your the rest of your day, evening, night, morning, but wherever you are in the world. Have a great day, evening, night, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.